Welcome to the Gen X Shift podcast, a show for Gen Xers who are navigating some pretty tough transitions and aren't sure how to move forward. I'm your host, Michelle Walter, proud Gen Xer, former lawyer turned entrepreneur, huge Jason Momoa fan, and margarita snob. And I've navigated a lot of transitions in my life, from losing my mom suddenly to a heart attack to starting my own business. But I often did it all on my own because I was too stubborn to ask for help. Now I'm on a mission to give actionable strategies to other Gen Xers so that they can find the confidence, courage, and clarity they need to make a shift. So let's rock and roll. Hey, welcome to episode 3, Gen Xers. I am really stoked this week to bring you my conversation with Josh Thurmond, who is the owner and creator of a Lava Box Portable Campfire. We talk in the episode about how I met Josh, which is a little funny, and I'm so happy now to include him among my circle of inspiring entrepreneurs. This conversation is jam-packed. Josh is an adventurer, a designer, and an entrepreneur who loves to work on big problems. He lives here in Colorado with his wife and 2 kids. And this episode is really for anyone who'd like to start a side hustle, or maybe start your own business, or just be inspired about how to keep reinventing yourself throughout your life, and especially in our 40s and beyond. This interview is jam-packed, and Josh really brings his electric energy to move us through this fast-paced conversation. We get into talking about Josh's upbringing and his early career experiences, everything from being a chef to working in the public legal office, almost becoming a lawyer. Thank God he did not. To then creating and owning Lava Box Portable Campfire, to being on Shark Tank. I mean, the dude has done a lot of stuff. And we also talk about his transitions from working with the National Sports Center for the Disabled here in Colorado and dealing with failures along the way as he started his businesses, how he rebounded from those failures and what he learned from them. He shares a story of how he created Lava Box Portable Campfire, which, by the way, is the most amazing portable campfire ever. I can never have a campfire when I travel because my dog Winnie is terrified of the popping and cracking sound of fire. I got to enjoy one of the Lava Box Portable Campfires at an event where I met Josh, and this thing is amazing. You actually feel the radiant heat. You don't feel like your legs are on fire, but the top of you is cold. It's truly remarkable. And it's quiet. And it's such a great idea to decrease forest fires because nobody needs to be burning campfires right now, especially here in Colorado. So I'm in love with the Lava Box. And stay tuned in the episode because toward the end, he gives a special discount code for Gen Xers so that you can save some money on getting your own Lava Box Portable Campfire. So make sure to stay tuned through the end of the episode. But Josh is really amazing. He has such an inspiring story. And I think listening to his failures, how he developed resilience around them, and how he uses the mission of really wanting to make the world a better place through charities that he sets up and hiring disabled people to work at his company. It's truly inspiring. So we also talk about his experience on Shark Tank, which is pretty entertaining. And toward the end, he reveals some big takeaways, good, juicy nuggets of advice that I think you're really going to value. So without further ado, let's get into this conversation and let me introduce you to Josh Thurmond. Hey, Josh, welcome to the Gen X Shift podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hello.
Thank you. For our listeners, I am with Josh Thurmond today. And Josh is not only an entrepreneur, he's an adventurer, an inventor, a designer, and he loves to work on big problems. And we were just chatting about some of the big problems of being an entrepreneur that I'm sure are going to come up here when we get into this conversation. But he lives here in Colorado, and I'm going to tell how we actually met because it's kind of a funny story. But he lives here in Colorado with his wife and 2 kids. And so, Josh, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. This is fun. I don't get to do a ton of podcasts, so I'm excited about this.
You should do more podcasts because you are cut out for it. You are a great person to talk to, and you have so much wisdom and experience with being an entrepreneur and just a designer and a go-getter. So I think that you should be on the podcast. You're being way
too kind. We'll see what comes out of this podcast.
You don't know me all that well. I'm only kind when people deserve it.
You're being super nice.
So I actually
keep it coming. It's really.
I am happy to stroke your ego all day long because it's
awesome.
Well deserved. I want to tell people how we met because I actually think it's a funny story. We met like less than a month ago, I think. It was just a few weeks ago.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. I had a friend in town who wanted to go snowboarding, and we'd gotten some bad weather, so I didn't feel like driving all the way out to the mountains and sitting in the traffic. So there's a really cool free snowboard trick ski park in downtown Denver called Ruby Hill. And so she and I had gone down, I think on Friday, to check it out. And it turns out they were closed because they were getting ready the next day for a big competition, an event that they were doing. So we came back the next day.
For my event.
Yeah, your event, yes. So we came back the next day. I just pulled into the parking lot. We're sitting in the car, and I see this Sprinter van pull into the parking lot. And because I so desperately I used to want a Sprinter van. Now I want a Coachman Cross Trail 22 or 23 XG, very specific, because I realized I want a little more room. But I check out all kinds of camping setups and RVs every time I see them. So I see this pretty decked out Sprinter van pull up with a bunch of advertising on the side for Lava Box. And I'm like, I think I've heard of Lava Box, but what really caught my attention is this thing on the top that was a gigantic flat black box that I recognized as a pop-up tent, but not one I'd ever seen. So you and your kid get out of the van, and I immediately go over and ask, what's that thing on the top of the van? And you tell me that it's a pop-up tent called the Auntie Shanty. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That you were testing out for some friends who have the company in Moab, right?
They're in Logan. Yeah.
Logan okay. Yeah.
Close by.
So I was like, well, that looks really cool. And you said it's the only hard-sided pop-up tent that there is, which I didn't believe, but now I do. And so anyway, you're like, well, I can show it to you if you want. So I will apparently get in the back of the van with any stranger. So take me.
I'm very friendly.
Let me just climb in the back of the Sprinter van with this total stranger. So we get in the Sprinter van, and as we're getting in, I ask you, can I ask you a potentially inappropriate question? And I can only imagine what might have been flying through your head at the time. But the question I wanted to ask you, which I did, is I said, can you tell me how old you are? Because I had a feeling that we were probably of the same generation. Yes. Because as soon as we started talking and you told me that you were the owner and founder of Lava Box, hence all the advertising on the side of the van, I was like, I want this dude on the podcast because I'm sure he has an awesome story. So that's how we met. So that's my version of the story anyway. Well, and you're awesome kid.
Oh yes. Roby is wild. Yeah. They're, both my children are big time adventurers, kayakers and rock climbers and snow skate. So the event was the snow skate, jam that we were having out there. And it was the best trick with our friends from Hovland Snow Skates, another partner. We have a lot of partnerships. I'm sure we can touch on it later, but it's a huge piece of our success. I think it's just friendships. But the pop-up tent, there's one other one, and it's beautiful. I just found them. They're making them out of Boulder, called Red Tail, but the price tag is crazy. So I'm a little, I think the tent sells for $26,000. I want to say just the tent alone. Their Sprinter van sells for $350,000. I think it's beautiful. It is beautiful. I don't know who. I would go with the Coachman.
That is one of the reasons. Yeah. I got to realize that my dog and me take up a lot of space. Yeah. And there's one thing I learned when we road tripped a couple years ago. We were on the road for 7 weeks, the dog and me, up through Canada and Alaska. And I rented a tiny little pull behind square drop trailer. Mm-hmm. So we'd have a more secure place to sleep. And that was fine. But I realized over the length of that kind of trip that when you're on the road for that long, you want everything to be as convenient as frickin' possible. And it's B, true. I need more frickin' space. And so I thought the Sprinter van, that's just not enough for the dog and me. And I want a real bathroom. I want a real big girl fridge. I don't want this tiny ass little college fridge. So how you and your wife and 2 kids do it in a Sprinter van is very impressive. But no, that's why I went the cross trail, because
for a month we'll be on the road for a month through June, touring all different what do they call festivals and trade shows all through Oregon and Washington, and then we'll be surfing at a standing river wave in Oregon, and then heading back. So it's kind of a crazy adventure with the four of us for a month.
Have y'all been gone that long? Before, have you been gone that long before in the
close
Sprinter
to
van?
that long, not all together, but this time we're all together. So we'll see how that goes. I may be getting a divorce, you know,
or lots of meds on the trip.
Yeah. Not afraid of meds. Modernity never passes me by on the pharmaceutical side of things. If they got a good med, I'll take it.
Whatever it takes to get through a trip like that, I fully support. Yeah, because 4 people in a Sprinter van will be impressive. So I want to hear about that.
It's actually great. And with that, you mentioned the top. The top really does. That's a game changer, right? I have a 14-year-old, and they need space, and I want to respect their privacy. She's also a very independent kid, so I think it's really nice to have them just do their own thing. And so my son and I will sleep in the little crow's nest. It's called the RTD, the rooftop dwelling. It is not a tent. Michelle will be very upset. Yeah, I have to explain that it's not a tent. I don't want to screw up their branding. I love them. So yeah, Auntie Shanty. Speaking of incredible entrepreneurs, when I was out there getting the tent put on, cutting a giant hole in my van, I got to tour his whole facility. This guy's got a compound. His name is Rod. Really neat guy. A little older than us, but he builds rock climbing walls and does all this, fiberglass work and all kinds of crazy things. So I was really impressed by his operation. He's been an entrepreneur for 30 years and has really made it spectacular, just a spectacular life for himself. So doable.
That's so cool. Yeah. There's just so many people like you out there doing such amazing things. And as somebody who is late to the entrepreneurial game, but it's never too late at all.
I'm late.
I think you can. Yeah. Like I feel like I'm late. You're not late. Like I feel like you've been doing this. Well, you've done it a few years more than me, but I feel like there is never a bad time for somebody to decide to go out on their own. But it is challenging. And we're going to talk about some of that. Yeah. But being an entrepreneur has made me so much more aware of all the other entrepreneurs out there that we don't necessarily hear a lot about. But there are such amazing people who go on Shark Tank, which we're also going to talk about if we can, that are doing incredible work, whether it's actual inventions or products, or whether it's something more intangible like what I do. It's just really inspiring. And so that's why I'm so glad you're here to share your story, because I think it's one that will inspire maybe those armchair entrepreneurs or folks who would like to start their own business, but haven't figured out how. I think that folks are going to be able to gain some insights and wisdoms from your journey. So I do want to rewind it. Yeah.
You are in an awesome tribe. And it's a group that really wants to bring others in that I found so far. Right away, I of course, as a Gen Xer, I'm like on Facebook, hey, does anybody know any groups that are entrepreneurs? I have questions, right? This was 4 years ago. And right away, great community. Was definitely not a bowling alone. I don't know, I'm all by myself out here. It was a great group that I got absorbed into and made good friends right away. Friends that I'm still see all the time now. We talk business and talk about strategy, and it's so they want to bring you in. I want to bring you in, and say go for it,
That's such a good point, and I hadn't really thought about that. And there's sort of a juxtaposition between the entrepreneurial community and the rugged independent streak that so many Gen Xers have. And as you were saying that, what it reminded me of is what a huge lesson being an entrepreneur has been for me, and a huge growth opportunity in so many ways, but in particular, a growth opportunity in learning how to ask other people for help and support and to rely on community and you cannot do entrepreneurship by yourself. You absolutely cannot. And that really is juxtaposed against the way a lot of us Gen Xers were raised to think that we can just do everything on our own. So I really like that you mentioned that, because there is a fantastic entrepreneurial community that I've always felt buoyed and supported, and people really want you to succeed.
Yes. Yeah. It's incredible. I think there's, always that kernel of, gosh, that is the American dream. Is it going to, culminate into something that is a real life for someone? And I think that's out there. And I've seen, it's so interesting. I don't want to sidetrack us, but I've seen people who want to bring their product to market. They do it by themselves. They don't want to be part of it. They want to bash everybody else out there. They, come in really hot, into the market and say, everybody else is terrible. We have the best product, and they fail. They just don't have the longevity because people in the market are like, nah, this doesn't feel right. This feels like it's not part of the dream. The dream is not a negative thing to me. And I think everyone else recognizes that too. They go, wow, that's really a lot of negative feelings and talk, and I don't want to be friends with you. And, of course, if somebody brings a service or a product that's exactly like yours, of course you're going to take notice. But if it's something that is close to yours or something that's, near you, but they're doing it their way, it's hard not to like them and say, I'm so impressed with your skills and your bravery and your ability to jump into our pool. And so like it's so interesting to watch people like that come onto the scene and just not understand what's really great about this decision to make in your life. I'm like, you're missing the whole point. I didn't decide to do this because it was not fun. I don't want it to be shitty. I want it to be really a good time, and I want to make new friends, and I want to make some money and have a great time. That's all I want to do. And it's really funny to watch people come in and be so nasty, and it's almost a caricature of what they think capitalism and business is all about. And it's just not that. It's not about us tearing each other down. It's really about supporting each other. So it's fascinating.
That felt so good to hear you say that, because I think there's so much truth in that, because it's like the competition spirit has been hijacked in an unhelpful way. There's a way to have healthy competition, both with others and with yourself. But I think so often businesses and entrepreneurs, as you're saying, it goes too far and they get concerned about having to outdo everybody else instead of just focus on yourself. Do
Always
your work the way that feels authentic to you, and don't worry about anybody else. And I think people really see that. So I want to get into your journey, how you got to this, because you have so much in your backstory. And so I want to rewind just a little bit and talk about what life was like for you when you grew up, where you grew up, because I think there are so many things that impact us down the road that we don't even realize. And so just tell me a little bit about what life was like growing up for you in the 70s, 80s, and sort of what you've gleaned from that experience.
I think, like so many people in our group, I grew up on the East Coast, and people who grow up on the East Coast certainly can straddle a couple of different worlds. I'm from the DC area. And so people always like, oh, that's they always, it's never really DC. If you've ever been to DC, which we've talked about, it's, so few people live actually in the city compared to the actual suburbs of DC. And it is a weird liminal space that you're just kind of in between. You can be in Bucolic, Maryland, or Virginia, or you can be in the heart of the city. And I grew up in that middle ground, in a very normal family. Both my parents were entrepreneurs, both wanted to do something else with their lives. So they started companies. And I will tell you that with them both doing it at the same time, we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of anything, because they were, you put everything into it, and it takes a lot of money and guts to do it. And so they just, we all understood that it was going to be for the future. And so that was an interesting place to be. So we had a normal, very modest home, regular life. But I got to see my parents work. And both my parents are incredibly hard workers. My mom, especially, I think, she started her own school. She's a school teacher, and started her own school. And it was just a very brave thing to do, to find the money and to build the business, and, built a K through 8th special school out in Maryland. I mean, it's really spectacular. So she's a hero of mine for sure. It's not easy for sure. And my dad is a nuclear consultant. He very smart guy, but from rural Tennessee. So both my parents are from the South. And built his own business as well. Working in Russia, there's always been this weird kind of shadow over whether he's actually a spy. We've talked about it. But it's hard to say. But I also, once again, saw him build a business, from nothing. His dad died when he was 13. Like I said, in Covington, Tennessee, which is near Memphis, but is cotton country, super, super poor. They ate crows and things. I mean, that kind of thing. So it's to watch them come from, like I said, they're heroes of mine because they came from something which is just nothing existed. And so it was that kind of spirit that I got to watch entrepreneurship happen. And for some reason, I didn't get the bug right away. I mean, I always wanted to make stuff. I'm like, I'm going to make something really cool, and was building all the time. And I'm a massive, tinkerer. I always want to make something cool. But I never really understood. I never really came to grips with the fact that I could just start something. And I don't know if that's, I always think about people who, I ask people all the time about, and I think you and I talked about it a little bit. I always ask people, like, why did you do it? Why did you just start? Did it like dawn on you one day? Like, oh, I can do this. I wonder when that happens. It's that epiphany is interesting. Like, that spark is fascinating to me, because like, when did it become something that you could just say, yes, I'll do that? But anyway, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but that was my upbringing. And of course, I wanted to leave right away. I think a lot of Gen Xers, like you said, we're these rugged individualists. Let's get out of here. Let's go do something else. My parents are dumb. Something like that. And so I moved west actually to be a ski bum. I was racing snowboards. I moved to West Virginia. I went to school for a little bit, but then I decided that I really wanted to race snowboards and do expeditions. So I actually did a lot of expedition work all over the world with National Geographic, Outdoor Life Channel. Mostly do caving exploration. So as do cartography work, which is kind of weird. So I draw maps of caves, wireframe maps of caves, and we put in the data and build the caves out. So that was a really cool job, and then at the summertime, I guide rafts, or, take video of rafting companies' trips down the river, called video boating. And that was my life. And I realized that I just couldn't make enough money. This is going to be a weird twist, but I was like, you know what? I like to cook. So I went to culinary school. I'm classically French trained chef. I have a culinary degree. Worked as a chef for a bunch of years in DC. I worked at the Watergate Hotel.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Very cool. Mm-hmm.
I worked for Dominique D'Ermo, who was a famous chef in DC for a long time.
I've heard that name. Yep.
Well, you always saw his soups. He sold his soups at Safeway and grocery stores.
Yes. I did not put that together. That's true. Yeah.
Yep. I apprenticed for him. And then when he passed away, I started working as the main guy at the Watergate, which to the dismay of a lot of the chefs there who had been waiting for their turn, and I became the executive chef. So I was 24.
That's
very
so
scary.
Young to be an executive chef.
I was awful at managing. I just didn't, I thought I knew it all. I was, like I saw, you're that young to take over a restaurant with 500 seats. I just thought I knew it all and I could do it all. And I got destroyed, Michelle. I got absolutely decimated by ego and mistakes. And, I always think about how poorly I did as a manager. And since I've managed people my whole life, my whole professional career. And it's like, God, I learned a lot. I don't like to say I failed.
I'm envisioning that TV show, The Bear, on Hulu. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what's going through my mind as you're describing this, because that's such a brutal industry. And it's especially tough. If you're an executive chef, having to manage on top of just the skill of the culinary art, that's a whole nother ballgame. So
all I wanted to do was
I was
create.
picturing.
I wanted to, it was not, I really didn't like the pieces of, of balancing the budget and doing the ordering and all that. So I just wanted to create stuff. And so I kind of was not super true to myself when it came to that part of it. But I do like managing people. And I kept going. And then I met my wife, and she's a 9-to-5er. She's a forensic scientist, a DNA analyst at the crime laboratory here in Denver. And she's one of the leading DNA analysts for mitochondrial DNA. So she'll get called out on mass disasters. So they'll bring her out they brought her out for you remember the tsunami in Thailand She worked on 9/11. So she's kind of a big deal in that world. And I really liked her and she was super cute. And so I said, you know what, I'll change careers because this doesn't suit us. We talked, getting more serious about having kids. And I said, you know what, I don't think I can be a chef and work. And the reality is you work nonstop, which is fine, but you're away. And then I said, she said, well, I'm a 9-to-5er and I have to be this way. So if you like me and you want to get married, let's change jobs.
That's a good woman right there.
She got me. She's like, I will fix you. I guess she did. I don't know. I wasn't that broken.
She was the exception. There's a lot of women that try to fix the men and it doesn't work. So she's the exception, or you're the exception. I don't know which.
I'm not sure fix is the right word. I mean, I don't know.
You both saw something that was worth.
Yeah.
And especially you, like you saw something that was of more value, more important to you. And
I did. And to be completely fair, I was tired of it, and like I said, it didn't go great. Even though I was, a big up and coming young chef in DC, it just didn't go very well. And I didn't like the lifestyle. I'm an athlete first. And so the lifestyle is not athletic, does not make you feel good. And I just had to shift gears. I didn't feel like myself, even though I like the art of it. And as a drawer, a designer, and a builder, I loved that part of it, the construction side, but I did not like the hours and the grief and the drinking and the drugs and the everything else. So the strife was bad. So anyway, I went back to school. I seriously entertained law school. I know.
No offense, but from what little I know of you, from what little I know of you, that would have been a train wreck. That would not have suited your creative personality very well.
I agree. So I was actually, I had a dinner one night. This is a weird story. And we had moved to Colorado. This was in 2005-ish. And we had moved to Colorado, and my wife has a great boss. He's a really innovative guy, neat guy. And he came over for dinner, and then his colleague, who was a Russian scientist, had come over. And like I said, my dad's a Russian spy. So I speak a little Russian. We got to talking.
Oh.
And so he's we're talking about it. He said, you should come and work at the district attorney's office with me. And I said, well, I'm not very well suited to do that. I said, what would my job be? He says, I will think about it and come back to it. But I want you to come work at DA's office. And I said, okay.
Love the accent, by the way.
You're welcome. Yeah. So his name was Simon, and so spelled seaman, which is still funny. I'm a 10-year-old. And then so I go to work for Simon, and it ended up being just this hodgepodge of stuff, all kinds of stats and building programs. And I kind of fell in love with designing social programs that help people change their lives in a way that was surprising. So we were figuring out ways to really reach people after they had been, obviously traumatized by some kind of horrible thing in their life. And I really enjoyed it. It was just like cooking. I had that same spark, like, wow, I think this is really neat. I'm serving people. I'm doing something important. I'm going to do this. And so, and then this is also during LSAT time. So I was asking lawyers when I went to the DA's office and said, should I go to, made friends, and should I go to law school? And they're like, no. They said the same thing you did. They're like, no way, you're wrong for law school. Don't go to law school. My LSAT was fine. I should have gone.
No, you've done well for yourself not being a lawyer.
It was a close one. So I finished my master's in public affairs and really enjoyed working with nonprofits. We created all kinds of interesting programs to kind of tell stories about people's trauma, including things that were from, far-flung places that, just really interesting things that had happened to people, and they got to tell their story and change their lives. And I really enjoyed that job. But I will tell you, I did it for 10 years, and it started to weigh on me a lot. I worked in witness protection, sex assault, domestic violence, and I worked directly with the survivors of those traumas. And so I just kind of, I did hit a wall. And I will say, I always tell this story. My wife and I go to parties, and people are like, what do what do you guys do? And we had to explain these two horrible jobs. You know, that if people are interested in her job, people are like, I don't want to know about your job. It's like, fair. So
it's not a good happy hour conversation.
It wasn't great. So and at the same time, I was still on the side teaching kayaking for Confluence Kayaks here in Denver. And so I'd be like, oh, I'm a kayak instructor. That wouldn't even mention the other job, which is better. People are like, oh, that's cool, kayak instructor. I'm like, yeah, you know. And so and I quit that job, and I actually applied for a job. I wanted to, as cliche as it is, please don't judge me, but I always saw people on like their worst day of their lives, right? Every time I was called in, it was something awful, right? And so it was like, all right, I'm going to switch jobs and do something where it's like the best day of their lives. And I love bringing people to peak experiences, life experiences. And so I went to the National Sports Center for the Disabled. They hired me as the program director for the Denver area, and I built all kinds of really cool new programs, innovative programs. I thought they were cool. We had like the country's first fully adaptive Ninja Warrior course, which was really fun. So you could even have a power wheelchair on the course and do all kinds of things. It was really neat. You can see it. It's still going, I think. But I only did
That's
that for
so
4
cool.
years.
I didn't know about that. That's such a gift. Yeah.
It was really fun. Like I said, it certainly spoke to all the things I liked, which is to give back, to make weird shit, to test the waters, push boundaries. And so, and say yes to people. That was the big thing, was like, people in the disabled community just hear so much no all the time, just nonstop. And I was like, I'm only going to say yes. You sign the waiver. Let's go. Let's do it. And I know people, I taught kids with autism to box, and now it's a national thing. People, first person to do that. I said, you know what? People need to make contact with people. People need to feel the athleticism. And especially, kids who are told not to do certain things. And people think that's crazy, but then the therapists are like, wait a minute. And the PTs and OTs were like, I like this. And people have adopted it all over the country. So it's an interesting, we need outlets. And I'm not a psychologist, but I know I need outlets. I know I need to sometimes just run until I fall down. The Prozac doesn't always do it.
Well, and I did. We were talking about, when mindfulness meditation fails, Prozac. Yeah. What I hear in that is a couple of things. First of all, that you've always had this inner drive to create things and design things. Yeah. And that for the most part, you've really followed that. Of course, there were times when it's easy to get a little sidetracked or let other things outweigh that. And yet you have been pretty good over the course of your life at continuing to just follow what that creative energy wanted you to do next, whether it was working as a chef or designing. Yeah. Designing programs for the DA's office, designing all the amazing things that you have for the National Center for Disabled. Those creative outlets are so important. And I don't think it's something that a lot of Gen Xers are great at following, because I'll speak for myself. I feel like being a lawyer really beat a lot of the creativity out of me.
Yeah.
In a number of ways. There are things about the legal profession that are creative for sure. And it wasn't the type of creative outlet I wanted. So what do you think it was about you that sort of allowed you to feel like it was okay to always follow that creative inclination?
Yeah, it's an interesting question to me, because the permission structure for so many of us, I totally agree, is always the same. Like they say, you do not have permission to jump around and do different jobs, right? We didn't hear that from our parents ever. I cannot remember. It's still as much as indelible as you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket. It's the same. Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute, I have a calculator in my pocket.
All the time
I have
now.
8 jobs and I'm totally fine. I love my parents.
It's all about loyalty. Like, you were expected to find a career and stick with it until you died or retired. Right.
And it just didn't, and I don't know. I will tell you that I grew up in special education, and people always told me I wasn't going to be able to do things. And I just said, I'm going to do them. And so I think I might be in a little bit of a different place on that, just because I refuse to have people tell me I couldn't do something. So Because people, I mean, I'm not joking. People are like, oh, you'll be good at a manual job. It's why I went to chefing. Is that it was you'll be good at a manual job, intellectual jobs, probably out of your reach, that sort of thing. I don't mean to be weird about it. It just was what people, as a child, especially in special education, I still can't write with my, it's so funny. They switched me. I'm left-handed, and they switched me to right hand to write better.
That was so common.
That's our generation, that they're like, oh, maybe it's kind of the burgeoning special education world. And they just didn't know. And I don't fault them for that, but there was hey, you're going to be right-handed because that's what the world is.
Yeah.
Fuck that. I'm left-handed. I'm so left-handed.
Absolutely. Do you write left-handed now, or do you stay with right-handed?
I write with my right hand most of the time because the paper is easier, but it's the same.
Yeah.
I throw it with my left still.
That makes so much sense though, because, and I'm stereotyping here, but we always hear that left-handed folks are more creative because of the left brain, right brain connection. And my grandpa was left-handed. I have a cousin who's left-handed. And that was something that was looked down upon. And there's a number of cultural reasons as to why. But yeah, that's something that we dealt with in our generation, is that if you were left-handed, schools, parents tried to make you be right-handed because it was looked at differently.
That's a right-handed world.
It's just another messaging of something that stifles our creativity when we're younger. Yeah. So I really am impressed by and commend you for, you kind of had no choice. You were being forced to switch to being right-handed, but that creative spark in you still showed through, and you kept following that through. So I got you a little bit off track because you were talking about the National Sports Center for the Disabled. Okay. So you invented all of these amazing things for them. So tell me what the next transition was after that.
Yeah. So, and unfortunately there's a million jobs in between all of these things. I kind of tried different things everywhere. I mean, as a property manager, I worked overnight desk at a hotel. I've had every job. Everyone always laughs about how many jobs I've had. So I left the NSCD, the National Sports Center for the Disabled. I went and helped Adams Camp, which is a camp for kids with disabilities, to kind of revamp their kind of corporate structure. They had a bunch of satellite camps that needed some help. And so I went and did that for a year, moved on to a tech company for about a year, and then went back as a consultant for the NSCD. And during that time is when I invented the Lava Box. I had tried to bring other products to market and had failed. And I know this is important for listeners that a number of things failed. Some big ones, like spectacularly failed. So I'm sure we could dig into them.
I say, can we pause on that for just a second? Because I think that is such an important point, especially for folks who want to be an entrepreneur, or maybe are trying to be an entrepreneur, and the failure is such a big obstacle. And I know we hear it all the time, like fail forward, blah, blah, blah. It's easier said than done. So how did you move through those failures to keep going?
I mean, I think I'm just a psycho. I mean, I don't know.
That's the soundbite that's going to go out on this episode. I'm just a American psycho. Yeah.
It's so weird. I mean, mine is compulsive, I think, almost. And not in like not in an American psycho sort of way, but I just can't stop. I want to keep going, and I get a lot of pleasure from pushing through. And so, I mean, it hits all the right notes for me. But so my first really big one was I had built a software program for do you remember OnStar? OnStar's still kind of around, but the stock price, don't look at the stock price, it's fucking awful. But the the idea of OnStar is still kind of around, and they're still using it. And it was in what year was that? 1999, I want to say. My partner and I completed a really neat program that allowed you to do bookings. This was before booking.com. This was before all this stuff. To create bookings for outdoor adventures. And we were hoping to pull in national park bookings, camping sites, all that stuff. So we had built out this really neat structure, great database. And we were going to pitch to Ford, who was at the time had OnStar in every vehicle. And I said, this is going to be a big one for us. And before we got on the call, or maybe while we were on the call right now, we were talking about IP protection. And we just didn't have the protections in place to really get into the mix with Ford. And of course, they took our idea and ran with it right away after we pitched it to them. So that was a huge miss. And I mean, like, especially during the dot-com boom, you're like, wow, that was the one that might have been the one. That's your first step. And that was a hard one for me. It kind of, it's actually when I was like, all right, I'm going to go to chef school and just be a cook and live my life. I know we're getting in deep now, but
I love it. I love it.
And that's when I was like, all right, I maybe I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. We're talking about 1999. That's how long I've been trying to find the one. So,
it sounds like my dating life, but yeah, that's okay.
What's that?
I said, it sounds like my dating life, but that's okay.
I hear you. So that was, it's been that long since my really big miss. That moment was the nexus. That was the moment, right? That was when we were right there. And that was when Silicon Valley was truly hitting an apex that was like nothing else that we'd ever seen before. And so if it had worked out, and I don't live in that world. I promise you, I don't. You could probably tell already. I don't live in if it had worked out. Fuck that. I'm not that person. But if it had worked out, that would have been a big one.
Yeah. I want to pause on that for just a second, because I hear you in that your personality type is that you're just somebody who's going to keep going. It doesn't sound like you really let failure deter you. And there can be a lot of reasons for that. And there are people who are sort of at the opposite end of that spectrum. And I'll speak for myself here, where failure is so unfamiliar. It's extremely hard to move through, because growing up, I was one of those kids who, straight A student. Everybody was like, you're going to do amazing things with your life. You could do no wrong. I was in the gifted program that we used to have those back then. And I just didn't fail a lot, except at sports. And I was fine with that. But academically, I just didn't fail. And so I never actually developed a tolerance, a flexibility when it came to failure. And so as I've gotten older and I've gone from big fish, little pond to little tiny amoeba in gigantic oceans, getting accustomed to failure is still something that's really hard for me. So what would you say to somebody like me who doesn't sort of have that flexibility for failure like you do?
God, it's so funny. We're all of our kids are now, people who have kids out there in our generation I think it's so interesting. I tell my kids all the time, it's like, you need to fail. It's good to fail. It's okay to fail. And it's really interesting because they didn't have the life I had growing up. They are smart kids. They're great kids. They got all their genes from their mom. So, I failed everything. I almost didn't get out of high school. And then I failed out of college right away. My parents are very bright people. And they're like, wow, he's not going to get through college and blah, 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 blah. And I think the only thing I can say is that it's going to be okay. Somebody needs to pat you on the back though and tell you it's going to be okay, because that's where you do need the structure around you. And I feel so bad for these entrepreneurs who don't have that, because especially if it's their first time out and it doesn't go well, and now they've told everybody that they hate them and that their product was better, and then they fail. I don't know how you come back from that, because you're right. You don't have the resistance built up. You haven't taken the blows yet. So you don't know what it feels like. And I think it's hard. I feel bad for them. I want to tell them it's going to be okay, but they were assholes to me.
Yeah.
But I really hear you on this, because I see so many exceptional people who, like I have a good friend who's trying to develop a product right now. And she's spectacular. She's a doctor. She's been successful her whole life. But her product it doesn't seem to be taking. And I once again, I don't know the magic formula. People ask me all the time. I don't know what the world will like. Obviously I've missed a bunch of times, but she was not prepared. She just was not prepared for that feeling. And it's devastating. And I don't know what to tell her. I wish I had more wiser words, but except that I tell her it will be okay. I'm sure we're going to talk about Shark Tank, but I had to tell a lot of people it's going to be okay. We talk to people and they're going to go on the show and they're crying, and it's the most important thing they've ever done in their whole lives. And it's hard to hear some guy, especially some white guy, is like, it's going to be all right. If you eat shit this time.
Like, thanks, Pollyanna. Appreciate it.
Yeah, right. Totally. Yeah. They're like, who are you? What is this? And I'm like, I'm just telling you that it may not work out, but you'll be all right. And that's a hard thing.
Well, because when you're in it, recognizing that it will be okay is sort of bullshit, right? It's like, I know it's not okay because right now it sucks. And I think from my perspective and my constant growth edge, and one of the things that having a mindfulness practice and doing coaching has helped me with is to learn to lean into the discomfort of failure, to not ignore it or try and push past it. It sounds counterintuitive, but if we want to get used to failure, because it's going to keep coming in one form or the other, we actually have to learn to get really comfortable with it. And that means gradually, whatever feels comfortable kind of for our nervous systems, right? We don't want to do some kind of shock therapy, but we want to learn to lean into the discomfort, the unpleasantness of that failure so that we can build that muscle. It's like working out. You want to go through the unpleasantness of pumping weights and feeling sore muscles because that's what builds that muscle. And so what I'm taking away from your experience for me is that, contrary to what I would like, it actually takes failing, not only to eventually get the result, but for you to kind of now laugh at it and be like, yeah, I failed at this huge potential OnStar thing. Ha ha ha. Now I have Lava Box. So let's talk about Lava Box, because
all right.
I am so I was so excited when I saw this van pull up and saw the Lava Box, and then when I heard the whole story behind Lava Box. So coming back to something you said earlier, what did inspire you to create Lava Box, and what is it for those folks who don't know what it is?
Sure. And I meant to have one. Like, what a terrible marketing.
Oh yeah.
I should have had one burning behind me. Don't burn indoors. So, I of course, people who live in this world seem to be not overachievers, but definitely overcommitters. We love to do this to ourselves, where we're like, oh gosh, I want to do 20,000 things at one time. I'm sure you're the same, or every entrepreneur is. And so I sat on the board of the Colorado Whitewater Association while I was starting Lava Box, while I was consulting for NSCD, while I was helping with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, everywhere. I was all over the place. But with the Colorado Whitewater Association, I was helping with their instruction. We were kind of getting through COVID, and we had our last trip of the year, and it's in a town called Kremling, Colorado. Which, if you're local, you understand it, but if you're just listening in, it's a remote town in Colorado. It's on your way. It's kind of a crossover town from on your way to like somewhere cool, like Steamboat Springs. And so it's a cold river day. We're all out there paddling, and that night it got down to like 12 degrees. It was cold, and we were all wet, tired, and drunk, and we had a few of those big round pits that you buy for $150 on Amazon, and they just didn't put out any heat. Everybody was freezing and complaining. And on the raft, we have to have everything. When you're doing rafting, you have to have everything has to be very compact. There's a lot of mise en place. There's a lot, everything in its place. That's a little chef throwback there.
Some French that a redneck Nebraskan didn't understand, but okay.
Well, no, but he should. So I've been using mise en place my whole life, but it's everything in its place is what it means. But it's to get everything.
My mom used to say that all the time. My mom always said a place for everything in its place. Yeah. So
chefs have to be able to reach out and grab things right away, and move very quickly. So mise en place is important. You have to know where everything is. And so rafts are exactly the same way. This really sings to this part of my nature. And I was like, I have to have things compartmentalized and put in place so I can turn them on when I want to. It's part of my philosophy with life too. And so, I put I said, well, we need to have something that's going to make the fires be really warm, but it has to fit in the place that I need it to fit into. And all of us use these ammo cans and boxes and those kind of things. I said, what if it's in a box? What if it's a campfire? Campfires they're usually round, and they look like a log, and whatever, all the fake campfires. There's a fire ban, so you can't have a real fire. And I said, what if it's in a box? What if it comes out of a box? And then I was like, well, what if it is the box? And so I went home. I built 7 prototypes that on Sunday night. I just had the idea of what it should look like in my head. Built a whole bunch of different models, ordered a bunch of stuff, went to Home Depot, tinkered around, tried a bunch of stuff, and by the time I got to about the 7th model, I was like, all right, this one has legs. It will sell. People will want it. Within a month, I had sold 40 of them to friends and family. Built a website. Actually, I built a website about a week. Within that first week, sold 40 of them. And then that was our very first 40. And then I sold 1,000 of them within about 7 months. And then from there, it just has been out of control. Now we've sold almost 20,000 units. 40 retailers, cracked 7 figures last year. So
amazing. And for folks who haven't seen this, I'll try and we'll definitely post a link to your website, and I'll try and maybe plug somewhere into the video, like a picture of it. It's the size of an ammo can. So it's basically like the size of my laptop, if that puts out some pretty intense heat that you hook up to a propane tank. So like a normal refillable propane tank. And there are 2 things that I absolutely love about it. I stood by the ones that you had going at the skate ski event at Ruby Hill. And it warmed me up quickly because it was pretty chilly that day. But it wasn't, I felt warm throughout. Some fire pit things just make you feel warm in one little area. I could feel the radiant heat and my whole body got warm. That's the first thing. The second thing is my dog is terrified of anything that pops and crackles because it sounds like a gun, and she's terrified of guns. So she's terrified of actual fires. She loves the gas fireplace in our house because it keeps her warm, but it doesn't make a sound. And so the Lava Box would be something I could take camping with us because I never have a campfire because she's terrified of them, and plus fire bans too. But so it's just sane. Like, it's a great way to keep warm. It doesn't make noise. It's so portable. It doesn't burn down anything because you're not dealing with actual logs and sparks that could catch fire to something. So you saw a problem and you came up with a solution. And that's all about entrepreneurship. It's seeing a problem and what's my solution to that problem. That's most entrepreneurs. And so that ended up getting you on Shark Tank. So I really want to know how you got onto Shark Tank and what that whole journey was like.
So I think I can't remember if we were recording yet or not, but we had discussed some of the IP situations that are really challenging. And right away, somebody copied us. Within 8 months of me releasing the product. And it was a big company. Actually, a couple of big companies followed us. They were really like, that's a neat idea. And the reason, I should mention, the reason it radiates is I was the first to really build a thermal mass inside of the actual box. So that thermal mass radiates a great amount of heat. And so people always ask me, because a lot of the other companies, the fire goes straight up, and you're right, it doesn't make you warm. And I was like, we have to figure out a way to have it radiate heat out as well. So anyway, it's good to
know there's a reason that wasn't just me, that there's an actual reason for that. It wasn't in my head.
It's designed that way. Yeah. So actually we have a new design we're working on right now with an additional thermal mass. So anyway, this company, really made a very, very similar product, but certainly an inferior product, in a lot of ways, demonstrably inferior. And, but had the cash and the connections to go further than we could go. And so I said, you know what, there are ways to make the playing field a little more equal. And so I reached out to Shark Tank and said, hey, would you have me on the show? And it was our first year in business. And we really I think we had done about $28,000 in sales total. So nothing, right? Nothing yet. And they said, well, we really like it. I did auditions and did all that stuff. And they said, we like you, we like the product. But the sales are not there yet. They were very kind about it. It was not a pejorative situation. It was just hey, you're just not there yet. Totally fine. And then they said, come back to us next year. We're going to call you because we want to see where you're at. Producers were wonderful about it. Call me the next year, and the next year we almost cracked 7 figures in our second year. And so they were like,
which is insane, by the way. A second year 7-figure is not normal.
Not normal.
That's pretty
not
impressive,
normal at all. And so they were like, all right, you've done something right. Please come on the show. And it was really an honor, to have that happen. I still I always go back and forth because people have this perception now that we're like this big company. We're still not. We have 3 full-time employees. But I also structured it to be incredibly lean. And we can talk about that in a minute. So I wanted to combine some passions of mine. But the show said, if you're in this place, would you come on? And they let me open the show, which was pretty exciting. I remember the episode. Like, after I got to talking to you, I was like, I saw that episode. Yeah, you were great. You forget people see it. Because I'm not super into celebrity status, and people come and stop me on the street all the time. I saw you on Shark Tank. I signed a Lava Box not that long ago. I was like, this is really weird. I'm just not that person. So it was like a very strange. I was embarrassed, and it was really nice. The guy was super nice, but it was a really neat experience. And of course, we sold a month's worth of product in a day when it aired. had a big party at my warehouse, which was super fun. That's all I want to do is have a big party. The Shatsky.
Yeah.
So
That's why we become entrepreneurs. We just want to have big parties and travel.
Have a big party. So it was really fun. And I'll tell you the experience. People always ask me like, what is it like? It's wonderful. It's once again a peak life experience that you just can't duplicate anywhere else. Because people are like, oh, you're selling out, or it's going to wreck your business, all these things. And I say, you know what? I'm just never going to get to do this again. Like, when is this going to happen again? I'm just going to do it now. I'm just going to say yes and do it right now. And I'm so glad I did. People always ask me if it was, if it was something that was not great, because we didn't close the deal. Obviously, if people haven't, spoiler alert, turn off the podcast right now.
If you haven't seen Shark Tank from 2 years ago or a year ago, whatever it was.
Yeah, it's a year ago. So I got 4 offers, made a deal with Lori. We never got to terms. We did due diligence for a year. We just couldn't figure out how to make it work for each other. And that was totally fine with me and totally fine with her. So it was an amicable kind of departure, and it was fine. Really a great
you've
experience.
done well for yourself. So it's not like things have tanked. I mean, you've continued to do well.
No. Yeah, like I said, the only thing that I think is funny is that people really perceive us as this monster company, but and I've learned a lot over the years about running lean, and I really wanted to keep it as lean and as simple as possible. I think the only wisdom I've ever gotten over the years is that I started with things that were so complex as a designer, and now I'm absolutely obsessed with lean, with clean, smart, simple. And I'll tell you where it comes from. You're going to laugh. I always thought that people, because I think a little bit different, I always thought people just couldn't explain things to me in a way that made sense. I understood the concepts, but I was like, you just can't seem to explain them in a simple way that I understand. And so I was like, I'm not going to be the person who gives you something so complex that you can't understand it, can't fix it. It won't work in the wilderness when you need it to. And so that was the whole point of Lava Box. And then I also really wanted to build something that I wanted my friends in the disabled community to come work at Lava Box. And so it had to be something that they could put together, they could build here in the US, that if you had, diminished hand control, those sort of things, that you could still work at my factory. Or you
I did not know that about your company and how it kind of came back full circle to working with the disabled. That is so
awesome
amazing.
Crew. And one of our builders is Kevin with Down syndrome. Kevin and I have been friends for years and years. And he's 43 and he works at Lava Box and builds things. So that was our goal. That's my goal.
That makes my heart so happy to hear. Well, because what makes my heart so happy to hear is, I mean, look, no judgment. It's great to want to just start a company and put something out there and make money. I also get really happy when I hear about mission-oriented companies. And it sounds like you had several missions, but to know that you also wanted to build a company that disabled people could come work at. And so you're giving them opportunities and creating more opportunity for your local community, I think is just beautiful. And that makes my heart so happy. And thanks. On top of that, so I want to come back to two things. One thing that you've said, one thing you haven't said. The one thing that you said is I want you to tell folks, how do you build a company that allows you to stay true to your mission and to be lean? And the second thing is that you also have a charity that's part of your company. And so I wanted you to talk about that too.
That is true. So I think the way you stay focused is, because it is easy. It's so easy, especially if you have a little taste of success early on. I think it's really easy to say yes to some things that aren't great for your company. I had an initial offer. I won't say what company, but it's a big one. To jump right in, 60,000 units would have changed my life. Year 2. And I said no. And I called my wife and I was like, oh my God, I fucked up. No, but I said no, I didn't want to work for them. I didn't want to, I wanted I didn't want them to change anything that we were doing. And I wanted to control it all. I know it sounds, and it wasn't for ego or power or anything. Like I didn't believe them that they were going to let me do it the way I wanted to do it. And we're at that age now. We're like, if I was, I think we talked about it. If I was 28, I might've said yes to that deal. Because it was the money that we needed. It was $3 million in my pocket right now. Great. And I've never had an offer since then because I think it probably permeated the rest of the business community. Said no to this, but it just wasn't right, and it would have put us in a place that I wasn't in control of the things that were core to us. And we do it really simple. Our number one thing is innovate, keep building, keep doing something new, and that's true to me. I mean, that's my choice, right? I want to innovate. I want to do the next thing before everybody else. Our second one is fix shit. So we have 3. And that's literally
It's a good motto. Just fix shit.
And our last one is keep going. And we actually have it on everywhere. It's on our mouse pads. It's everywhere. Those 3 things. Innovate.
Those are great. Can you say those 3 things one more time? Because I think those are huge takeaways.
Innovate, fix shit, and keep going.
Yep. Perfect life motto right there for everything. And something you've stayed true to. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not kidding. Especially about the fix shit. People with disabilities can't get jobs. We can fix that. We are just absolutely destroyed by wildfires every season. We can help fix that. And I will say that the last bit is the most important to me is keep going. You asked like what it all means and how do you feel better about failing? You just have to fucking keep going. There's no choice. I've been in dark places in my life, and the number one thing is keep going. Open your eyes the next day and keep going. And so that's why those are our 3 core principles. And we're not even allowed to have meetings. I don't even allow meetings. I don't want meetings. I don't want a corporate structure. I know it's all coming. I'm slowly accepting it, but but those core principles probably won't change. And I don't want to sound like a nouveau, SoCal guy. It's not that. Those are really what we believe in.
Now, I think that is I think it's very representative of a Gen X, and I know I'm generalizing here, but Gen Xers have a rebellious streak. Yeah. And in the way that you have built your company and been successful without kind of buying into the growth for the sake of growth concept, which I think is the trap a lot of entrepreneurs get into, is just to grow for the sake of growing. Well, what are you growing for? And what are going to be the impacts of you growing? Are you really going to like the life you have if you grow to 7 or 8 or 9 figures? Is that really what you want? Mm-hmm. And I don't think some people are conscious about that. And it seems like you've been really conscious and intentional about keeping things small and lean and mission oriented. Because I remember when we were at Ruby Hill, you were talking about how you guys are closed on Fridays, right? It's like, don't try and find us on Friday because we're going to be out playing. That's one of the reasons to have a business, is to set your own schedule. So why have a business if you're then just beholden to the business all the time and you don't get to have that freedom that you want?
And don't get me wrong, we work all the time. I mean, like,
totally.
Absolutely. I work with manufacturers overseas. It all happens. But I still feel like I make the calls. Yeah. And the second it starts to not feel like that, I reevaluate. I do have some mindfulness and I say, why can we do it a different way? It's not really like, why is this happening? It's more of a, like, I need to shift somehow. As part of the keep going motto, like, I will not be happy with this if it goes this direction. How do I fix it? And I think that's the core of it. But giving up. So there's a financial piece of that too. And I should just mention it, that like, if you decide that it's growth for growth's sake, I had a really great mentor who was like, well, you could sell $8 million worth of stuff tomorrow. He's like, he's right. But the point is that at let's say 60,000 units for that buy that I was going to do, I was losing, 30, 40, 60 points off MSRP to make it happen. So now we're talking about cash that's just out of my pocket. And now my margin sucks. I'm working for somebody else. So there's some pragmatism there too. It's not just good feelings. I don't want anybody to think that I'm not still a businessman. But to be fair, the business has to keep going. But if we do $2 million in sales every year, and we keep the lion's share of that money, that's a much better business model for me.
Absolutely.
Maybe you want the accolades of being a $10 million business, a $20 million business, and there is no question in my mind we could get there. We certainly have the roadmap. I just don't think I want to have that in my life.
It's such a relief to hear somebody say that. I don't want to have that in my life. I mean, that is, I think, the trap that, again, so many entrepreneurs get into, is thinking that they need to keep making more money, making more money, making more money. But really, does that fit the life that you want to have? And I hear you being a businessman who really listens to his instincts and who holds true to your values that keep you on course for the kind of business that you want to build. And that includes the charity, by the way. So tell a little bit about the charity that you have as part of Lava Box.
Sure. So we have a great partner that we kind of grew together. Once again, my background is in public affairs, mostly nonprofit management. And so I really helped shepherd a really great group called Protect Our Rivers. And we have a wonderful executive director. She does a great job, Sarah. And we've been able to do river cleanups all over the world. So far, we're getting there.
All over the world. Wow.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't know it was that broad.
So we're working on some international stuff now. But right now, we've been doing, we've picked up thousands of pounds of trash all over the country. It's very exciting, and we're just going to keep growing. And
why is that important to you?
Well, I mean, as a kayaker and a river surfer, and it's my playground, and I can't handle it to be dirty. It just bugs me. I mean, obviously, I worry about, all of the damage we do to local species, all of those parts of it. I just think it really brings our world down. It just makes you don't feel good. I paddle. I was saying, we were talking, I paddled yesterday on the South Platte, which is for kayakers, it's our home river. We call it our home, whatever river is your home river. That's your spot. And unfortunately, the South Platte has a lot of city drainage, out of the pipe dumping, all kinds of stuff that's just really a bummer. And so I sponsor the big cleanup. The Lava Box sponsors the big cleanup for South Platte each year. We encourage people to come out, and we usually have 200-300 people out there cleaning up the river. We allow corporate entities to work with us as well. But I just don't like it. And it's wrong. It's just straight up wrong. I mean, I can name all the myriad of ways that it's bad. But as an actual river users, there's a much more, it hits home that it's just dirty and gross. And so I was like, you know what, we need to fix this. And once again, we are facing some, in Denver and in so many cities, we're facing some serious housing issues and people who are having to live by the river because they need water. Not for bathing, for, all the things they want to do. It was just, I don't want them to have to live in filth, even if they're living on the streets. And I think we can do a better job with the river being a place where it's a sanctuary, not it's just like you're condemned to be here in this filth. And so, it's a big deal to me. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I'm just so proud of Sarah and everything that she's done with the nonprofit. And I'm just lucky to be under her shadow because she's awesome. So it's protectourrivers.org. Go check it out.
Okay.
She's a powerhouse. Speaking of entrepreneurs. And so Sarah Nelson.
You'll have to hook me up with her too, because I would love to have a conversation with her. And please, the next time, I'll keep an eye out the next time you do one of those cleanups, because I'd love to come down and join. That's right up my alley. And it's just such a great example of, I don't know if you intended this or not, but sometimes there are unintended consequences or results of being an entrepreneur, and being able to have a charity that you really care about. I know that's one thing that's on my radar. Like long term, I want to be able to have a charity that my business can help support. And so the fact that you've been able to do that is really impressive.
I mean, you've probably gotten the gist, but I was super focused on it right away. We had made a promise when we started the company that $1 from every single sale we made was going to go to something good. And I will tell you, this is a terrible story, but I'll tell it really quick. I reached out to a whole bunch of nonprofits. So I work with Team River Runner, which is, I teach wounded veterans to whitewater kayak. But I've been working with them for at least 10 years. And the founder of that nonprofit is like a second dad to me, Joe Mornini. He's like, he's just somebody that I really respect. And I talked to him yesterday, talked to him all the time. And I said, well, I'm going to try to work with other organizations as we start this company. But Joe really supported me. So we gave a lot of money to them right away. But then Sarah came to me and said, I'd really like your help getting this nonprofit off the ground. Can you? So we had coffee and started talking about it, and then we just kind of built it from the ground up. It was great. But I always had a very conscious like, hey, we're gonna, and it's funny. I'm lucky to have a partner, a wife that's so understanding of my big bleeding heart. But I was like, hey, we're gonna give all the money away. And I was, but I want to tell you the story because I went to some really big nonprofits, and they were like, and I said, I'm just starting my company out, and I wasn't broke, but I was like, I just can't give you $20,000. We don't have it. I can't give you $10,000. We don't have it. Just out of our account. And they said, well, if you want to work with us, you got to start at X number of dollars. And I was like, you don't want my $5,000? Nope, not interested. We won't work with you. And I said, well, that tells me everything that I need to know. If that's really where we're at and you won't work with a small business, then we're not going to work together. And so I went right back to my favorite charities. We worked hand in hand and built this awesome thing. And I warned them, I won't say who they are. I said, I'm going to make this company huge and you're going to be sorry you didn't take that dollar. Yep. And I don't know how they feel now, but give me 5 more years. Michelle. Yeah. Give me 5 more years.
Yeah. Well, and that's just another example of you, quote, failing, getting rejected by these big nonprofits and then so just reinventing yourself. It's just amazing. I
was so angry. I was so disappointed in them. I was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. You don't want to work with me. That seems just so visionless. It's probably not a word.
Short-sighted. It's very short-sighted. And to turn away $5,000 because you didn't have $10,000 or $20,000 to give them.
We're not there yet.
It's very short-sighted. Yeah.
I ran nonprofits. I know everybody needs money.
Yeah.
I was like,
don't turn away a dollar. Yeah. Don't turn away a dollar.
Don't turn away a dollar.
I'm curious, just as we'll start to wind this down a little bit here, just for the sake of your time, because I know that you are so busy. I cannot, every time you rattle off something, I'm like, when do you sleep? But I really want to know from you two things, and we'll start with the harder one first.
All right.
What do you think are the biggest challenges or things that you really don't like about being an entrepreneur?
Customer service. That's not a hard question. And I'll tell you why. Because I love our customers. I love them so much. I see them out. They talk to me. They honk their horns. They scream at me from their cars. They stop and chat with me on the trail. I mean, all of it.
They climb into the back of your van.
They literally climb into the back of my van. A guy stalked me while I was taking my clothes off after kayaking and like didn't lead with, "Hey, I'm a big fan of your product." I was just like, "What are you doing?" Oh my God. I love our customers. I don't love the expectations that our world has created for them and for us, for Lava Box. It has really become something that I can't even hire people to do it because it's so taxing on their ego and their life and their soul. And it's terrible because people really treat people poorly. We are a small company. We are not Amazon. We're doing our best. We turn things around very, very fast. But we cannot afford to have somebody answering phones. So this is a really funny thing. I just can't man telephones. And unfortunately, people have this expectation. They're going to call anybody 24 hours a day and talk to someone. And we just don't do that. And I know it has turned customers away. I know it's turned off people. But once again, our quality of life matters too. And my employees' quality of life matters too. And if you can't get over that, then you're just not a good fit. I've told people you're not a good fit for our company. And they were mad. 100%. They wrote a Google review and said, "Oh my God, I can't believe you told me I wasn't a good fit. What an asshole." And I'm like, "You're the asshole."
Yeah. And even just own that. Okay. Yeah, I am an asshole. And I mean, that's such a great point. And it's just something to keep in mind anytime we're buying anything, that these are human beings we're dealing with. If you're talking to a customer service representative, it's a human being with a life. And I, again, am going to celebrate the shit out of you for sticking to what is important to you, maintaining the quality of life for yourself, for your employees, and to not have somebody manning the phones 24/7. And if somebody doesn't like that, they're not a good fit. Like in my world, we call that like they're not part of our target audience. If they're not resonating with what you and your company are trying to do, it doesn't matter. They're not a good fit. And so I love that you stand firm in that.
We really want to meet people where they are. And I've run a CS department for a startup. I know what it takes to keep people happy. And And there are just people who have outmoded expectations that I just can't meet. And that's okay. I tell them that. I mean, that's exactly literally what I tell them. I said, your expectation is just something that we cannot abide by. And I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one. So that's, I think that's the most challenging piece of it right now for small businesses is a lot of entrepreneurs are enamored and they get that sparkly, oh gosh, I have this really cool thing. And they do. They have a really great thing. They're going out on this awesome service. But that back end, working with people day in and day out, I think is really hard. And I'm a people person. I love people and I love hearing their story and finding out what they're doing and, working with them. But man, when they come down hard on you, it is a soul sucking moment that is really hard on people. And there are people who think they're designed to do it or can handle it. They're not. I've worked with, literally thousands of people at different startups, different businesses who work in customer service. It's just a really tough job and people make it so much tougher. It's just an awful job. And I won't even let my employees do it, to be honest with you. Like I'm going to go out of town next week for a vacation with the family. And I was so reticent to even say like, I will, can you man the customer service email while I'm gone? Cause I just don't want them to feel so, and we don't have a lot of angry stuff, but there are people who are assholes.
Yeah.
And they're angry with their lives and I don't know what they're going through. And I don't want to say that I feel for them. But it also, you can only take so much.
Yeah. It doesn't take much because number one lesson of being an entrepreneur is to recognize that you are not going to be able to serve or please everyone. You're not going to be able to serve everyone. And even those that you serve, you're not going to be able to please all of those people.
That's right.
That's like the number one lesson. And number two, you never know what is going on in somebody else's life. And so the angry customers that call, that person might have just had a dog that passed away that day, right. And not getting their lava box in the mail is like the one thing that just sent them over the edge.
Right.
And we're never going to know that. We have to just be on the receiving end of it. This is, again, mindfulness.
Yeah.
The mindfulness practice, like to have some compassion and just pretend what might be going on in their lives. Because sometimes that's all you can do is just to make up some story in your head about what somebody might be going through that caused them to act that way. But it does take a huge toll. I'm curious, what would be one piece of advice that you could give someone who is thinking about becoming an entrepreneur that would help them on their journey?
Yeah, the biggest one is don't wait. So we had talked about it a little bit before. Our planet is moving so fast. The zeitgeist is like every single idea, every single piece that's out there is firing in people's minds. So don't wait. It is the person who acts. It's not the person who thinks of it. It's not the person who did this or that. I mean, we talked about patent law earlier when we were off air, but you can go and patent stuff, but somebody else is going to change it just enough, but they may not follow through. And so if you wait, you'll miss it. And I think that's the biggest piece. People always ask me this, and it's the big one. You have to jump in and go. You can't wait. If you wait, you will lose. And it's just it's so clear. And I always think like, gosh, maybe I'll change my mind about this 10 years from now when I'm wiser. And I don't think so. I think this is the one that like has made the most sense. If you wait, someone else will do it. And
100%.
Then you got to go. And patents be damned, IP be damned. You need to go forward and find out what happens. Because I've waited. I've gone through the process. I've gotten the patents, and I was telling you earlier, I'm going to speak at the U.S. Patent Office. They have a big annual. I'm a keynote speaker there, and they have a big annual
which is so
meeting.
Cool and random. You're speaking for a big conference for the patent trade, which is just bizarre. I didn't even know there was such a thing. So.
But I will relay to them that speed is everything. There are so many smart people out there with great ideas, and they're going to act too. And you have to act. I mean, that's the bottom line is you have to act. And so all the fears and all that stuff you have to push aside and go. And I was talking about my friend earlier. I'm so impressed by her because she just went. And whether it's a great idea or not, I don't know. I'm not the judge of that. The customers, the world is the judge of that. But the fact that she just went for it was awesome. That was the cool thing. And she's our age. She's 50. And she just said, fuck it, I'm doing it. And that's what you have to do. She didn't wait to patent it. And I've seen that mistake. I've seen people wait, and just, you can't, period.
Yeah. Well, because here's the thing. I think so often people wait or don't do it at all because there's a lot of imposter syndrome, or they think their idea sucks, or what if it doesn't, quote, work? What if it's a failure? And it kind of comes back to everything that we talked about earlier in terms of failure, is that you just have to fucking do it. And if it fails, it fails. The key is going to be to see what is the feedback that you got from that. And then in that respect, it's not really a failure. And that's not some Pollyanna silver lining bullshit.
No.
It's that in every failure, there is feedback to learn to make what you're going to do next even better. And so if you look at it from the standpoint of, I'm just going to do it and just throw it out there, like this podcast, for example, this is an experiment. I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm awesome. Fuck it. It's something I've wanted to do. I'm going to do it. We'll see where it goes. I'm going to learn from it for the next thing that I do.
I was so happy to support you to do it. I would tell you, you are in our camp, and I was very happy to support you to do it, because it's good to see somebody just go for it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to say for our listeners, you have an awesome gift, so to speak. You have a discount code for folks who want a Lava Box. I know I'm going to be getting one because I want one really bad for all of my travels. So what's the discount code for podcast listeners? And I'll make sure to put the link for,
oh my gosh.
Well, first of all, tell us what the website is and then the discount code.
Yeah. So go to fireanytime.com. I didn't even wait to get the right URL. I just went. I got a URL that worked, because people you laugh, but man, I have talked to so many people who are like, I didn't do it because I couldn't get the URL that was exactly the one I wanted. I'm like, holy shit.
I've been there. I agonized over the right name for my business, and then it had to have the URL, it had all the stuff. Yep.
You'll
I've been there.
litigate or buy that shit later. Just get your thing. And then I have to look up the code. I can't remember what it was.
It's Gen X 15. Gen X 15. Gen X 15. Yeah. I'll put that in the show notes. Yeah. We'll make sure everybody has that.
Gen X 15. You'll put it in as you check out. Take 15% off your entire cart. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And you'll be supporting a small business that's really trying to change the world.
So let's do a quick lightning round, and then I want to make sure everybody knows where else they can find you. And so Gen X lightning round questions. Here we go.
Oh, God.
All right. Fondest Gen X childhood memory?
Rad the movie.
What? I haven't heard of this.
So it was a BMX movie, and I really love it.
Was there anybody in it who we might know? Was this like up-and-coming BMXers?
Yeah, totally. So remember, who was the wife, or maybe it was the girlfriend of Uncle Jesse in Full House?
Oh my God, you're tapping the vault. I know.
What is her name?
Wasn't Lori her name on the show?
Yes. Yeah, she just got in trouble, I think, for something. But
yes, the whole college scandal.
Yes, that's her.
Okay, we're gonna be talking and getting sued here, but I know you're talking about. Yeah.
So she was the love interest in this movie, and it was a very I don't like to gender anything, but it was a very boy kind of movie.
Yeah,
but there's a scene in that movie. They're all BMX racers. It's awful. It's an awful movie. I think that's the first thing that popped in my brain is I really love that movie. And I
learned something new. I'm gonna have to go check that out. I love that that's your favorite memory.
Rad, the movie, and the prom on bikes is pretty spectacular. So
RAD. Okay, I will have to check that out. We might have already covered this, but just in general, what would be your biggest piece of advice for Gen Xers going through any transition, maybe even a business or career transition?
Actually, we didn't cover it, and I want to say, give yourself room to go slow, and it's okay to screw up and forgive yourself. Give yourself a little bit of space. I think that's the big one. We are all just like. It's so hard because we grew up into this hyper accelerated life where everybody was going to be the best and it's all going to be great and you're going to be a president and you're going to do all this shit, and just give yourself some space, man. It's going to be okay. Like that part of it where you're like, God, I have to hyper achieve. Fuck that. I mean, it just gets in your way. And I think that we're really bad about it. Because we saw our parents and so much of that generation, especially through the 80s, just the economy accelerated and everything was looking so rosy. And of course it was just the sheen of greatness. And we thought we had to be those people, and it turned out those people may not have been so great.
No,
it turned out that we were left with kind of the dust and ashes of what could have been some great movements. And I think that we put that pressure on our shoulders. And I think it's okay to say it's not ours. I mean, it's okay to not be that overachiever. So,
dude, you're speaking my language now. And it's always a good reminder for me because I am very much that competitive type A, not keeping up with everybody else, and I'm clear back here and everybody else is clear up there. And it's a constant reminder for me to give yourself grace and space for where you are, and know that where you are is okay. Fuck where everybody else is. It doesn't matter. Be where you are and look at where you want to go, not in comparison to anybody else, but just for yourself. And so I really appreciate that.
I will say my boomer dad always said the same thing, was just worry about yourself.
Yep. That's exactly. Just start with yourself. Worry about yourself. Boomers have some good advice.
That was pretty good advice.
Don't credit them for that, but there's some good advice. All right. What's your favorite Gen X era word or phrase?
Oh, all right. So it's only a DC thing though.
Oh.
Yeah. So
we'll see if I know this.
Yeah. So it's sized. And
I do not know that. And I lived in DC for over 20 years.
People said psyched, but in DC we say sized.
What does that mean?
So, I'm excited. I'm into it.
Sized. I'd never heard that before.
To go there, whatever.
Spell that for me.
I don't know how it's spelled.
I'm thinking like CIT. No,
like,
that's sites. I don't know.
Psyched, like PS, or PHS, and so this was sized, and only people in DC said it. So
yeah, that's a new one for me. Okay,
I'm crushing you today, Michelle. This is awesome.
That must have phased out by the time I moved to DC. That's all I can say.
Oh yeah, no, this was early '80s.
That predated my DC time. Okay, that makes sense. Now I don't feel so lame. Okay, if you were a professional sports player, snowboarder or whatever it might be, paddle, kayak or whatever it might be, what would be your Gen X walk-on theme song?
Oh man, that I actually had to think about a theme song. I'm going on another show on another podcast / it's a live. It's their live gathering, and I had to pick a song. Wow. I know. I love music and I play a lot of music, and so I was like, gosh, this is really a hard choice for me. So I may have to think about it for a minute because I don't.
That's okay.
It's probably Welcome to the Jungle. Fine, it's fine. It's what do people say? It's as basic as that. I love fucking Welcome to the Jungle. You can't take that away from me.
Yeah, I think that's a good entrepreneurial theme song, by the way, too. Like Welcome to the Jungle. It fits.
GNR's right. GNR always hits right. So
always. And last one, what are you most proud of being a Gen Xer?
Well, I'm not going to cop out and say my kids, because I really am proud of them. They just are such cool beings. Man, I'm really proud of our what our generation has done. I was always worried that I didn't think the boomers were going to fix anything, and that largely is true. I don't feel like we're in the same place. I don't feel like we're heading into a place where our kids could have it worse than we do. And I think that there is an opportunity right now, our age, to correct this moment. And I think that we actually could do it. And I'm an optimist, obviously. I do believe that things can happen and they're good, and it's going to, the arc of whatever that quote is. I think we are arcing towards the right thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Obama's quote / Martin Luther King's quote.
The arc of justice swings. The moral arc swings toward justice. I know I follow it too.
The arc of our social fabric to move towards the good is there, and I think we're the generation to do it. I'm so proud of what we've done so far. It's just like it's kind of mind blowing. The pieces they talked about in the 70s. They talked about environmental movements. We've enacted them. We've pushed hard on our leaders and boomers to do it. I think that's huge. It's not my accomplishment. It's our accomplishment. And I think that's a pretty impressive thing. That you can't You can't discount it. And I think that millennials understand that we are those people. That's why they don't hate us. They hate boomers.
I'm under the radar. Nobody feels any particular way about us.
We're just really good. We're like, and that neutrality, that ambivalence is maybe because we are doing the right things. I don't know. I hope so. But that's why I think that I think about all my colleagues and friends and kids I went to high school with, and I'm just so impressed with like how I'm so proud of the fact that they have become such a vital piece of our world. Man, it's awesome to see what they're doing and how they're changing things. And so I'm very proud of that. And I don't mean to be so, as you said, Pollyannish about it, but it's pretty awesome. And I think we're the ones. I really do.
Yeah. I don't think it's Pollyanna at all. I think there really is that tremendous entrepreneurial spirit. It comes back to exactly what you are, like solving big problems. And I think that is a common theme, not necessarily everybody, but it's a common theme among our generation, is that we see problems and we want to fix them.
Yeah.
And there can be pros and cons to that for sure. But I think when it comes to really embracing, comes back to that creativity, the entrepreneurial spirit, we are very good at identifying problems and finding solutions to them. And I think the more that we can invite other Gen Xers to follow that, and this is something that was coming to me when you were talking earlier, I can't remember what we were talking about, but what was sticking in my head is this notion that there are so many awesome ideas in the graveyard. Right. And let's not take your awesome ideas to the graveyard. So if there's a problem that you see, there's something that's bugging you, that means there's a solution that's rattling around in your head and your body somewhere. And so how can you take that solution and turn it into something that you love to do? Is it going to be easy? No, it's going to be really fucking hard. It's going to be a lot of challenges. And is that going to be maybe the thing that allows you to have the life that really does light you up, that allows you to serve people in a way that you want to serve? Yeah. So I think it's a really great recognition of the fact that our generation is a generation of people who I think want to solve problems because we want to serve. I think we're a very service-oriented generation. We really do want to help people. At least I do help people. I'm almost tortured with the fact that I want to leave the world a better place every single day.
Absolutely.
And I say tortured because sometimes I feel like, well, I didn't do anything today to make the world better. So it's like giving myself that grace and space. Right. So I think the more permission that we can feel as a generation to lean into that, it's never too late. As you said, do it. Start now. I think it's awesome. So tell people where they can find you if they want to get more of Josh, more Lava Box, if they want to donate to your charity.
I wouldn't want any more of me, but I would go. We have retailers all over the country. So you can go to fireanytime.com and then just pop into our Find Us kind of area. We have a map of all the retailers. We are promoting something right now, which is something we're calling our Mutual Friend program. And if you have a shop that you really love, because we only work with mom and pops, we don't do any large. We don't go to Ace. We're not in REI on purpose. And if you have a shop you really love and you make the introduction, we will give you $300. So
is that like McGuckins in Boulder, for example? Or are they what you would consider? Example. That's awesome. So for those who don't know, McGuckins is an awesome, like small, local, amazing. It's like Candyland. I love going in that place.
Hardware stores like that sort of thing. We only want to work with mom and pops and people we like. And so, because that's a whole nother, we didn't talk about it, but wholesale is a whole nother, animal you're trying to wrangle all the time. We'll give you just a straight cash or a Lava Box credit to make that introduction. And if we open an account with them, you get paid. So
that's awesome. I love that. And now I'm going to be thinking like, who are the mom and pop? No, I love that.
Love it. We love it. It just is such a much warmer entry. Nobody in our company likes to just call people randomly and say, hey, carry Lava Box. It's not our style. And so I think it's just a much nicer, more friendly way to do it. More community-based.
Absolutely. It's about connection. I mean, I think that's something as an entrepreneur, I am realizing that I don't want to do my business like a lot of other people do, which is a lot of social media marketing, which is fine. It's just not me. And it's not how I feel authentic. And what I've learned is that I am all about actual connections with human beings. And so I hear that in what you're saying too, that let's just not cold call mom and pop shops. Let's actually make a developed connection and relationship out of this. So I think that's really cool.
That's what it's
you're
really
on
about.
You're on Instagram and TikTok too, right?
Oh yeah.
Those
so
handles?
Instagram, fire anytime. TikTok, we do some. We're about to boost our presence depending on how the Congress falls on TikTok.
Right.
Before I pump any money into TikTok, or energy, I want to make sure TikTok's going to survive. That just time stamped our podcast here.
I know, right? 2 years down the road, people are going to say, "Wait, what happened to TikTok?
What?" But and we're on Facebook, of course. Lava Box Campfire. We're everywhere. You just Google us and watch the Shark Tank episode. That was season 14, episode 18.
Good. I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay.
Yep. And I think that's most of the places you can find us. Of course, we're right here in Denver, and you can come to our shop anytime. It's a really cool place. It's actually original.
I want to come check out the shop. That would be awesome.
It's the original slaughterhouse for the National Western Stock Show. So it's a really interesting little building. It's cool. It's creepy. It's haunted. It's awesome.
You hear like ghost mooing in the background or something?
Oh yeah, all the time.
I'll make sure everything is in the show notes so that folks can get to the website, find the discount code, follow you on social media and your charity. Awesome. And I'm just so grateful that I climbed in the back of your van and have gotten to know you. And I'm so grateful to be in this entrepreneurial camp with you because you really inspire me. And it feels very supportive to know that there are folks like you out there who want to help other entrepreneurs.
I'm so happy to have you. Like that's the biggest thing is once you decide to go there, the people are out there. They'll be with you. Absolutely. They want to see you succeed.
Yes, we all do. We want to see our fellow entrepreneurs succeed. So reach out to us. Like, I want to offer up to folks, at least reach out to me, just know that there are people rooting for you. I think that's the
people
big
reach out to me all the time, Michelle.
Yes.
All the time. And I'm so happy to talk to them. It's totally cool. I go to schools and talk about entrepreneurship, run a class for Northfield, incubator class for entrepreneurs there. So it's out there. People want to help people.
Yeah.
All right.
I love that. Thank you so much. It's been great to have you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Holy cow. Was that a wild ride or what? That dude, he's done a lot. He's accomplished a lot, and he's managed to stay true to himself and to find what really matters to him through his entrepreneurial journey. I loved it. I'm so inspired by that dude. I hope you were too. I left that conversation with a renewed faith in my own entrepreneurial journey and in doing work that can really make a difference in the world because there's folks like Josh that are out there doing it. So I hope you found some inspiration too. He's an entrepreneur that really speaks to my heart and highlights really why so many of us want to become entrepreneurs. Yeah, there's some freedom that we want and money. Really, at the end of the day, for him and for somebody like me, we really just want to make a difference. We want to help other people in the world. So that's what I'm hoping this episode did for you. I hope it made a difference. I hope it gave you some little nuggets of wisdom. So please, if this resonated with you, please take just 30 seconds to rate and review the podcast in whatever platform you listen on so they can get moved up in the algorithms and get out there to more people. And if it really did resonate with you, please share it with one other person. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Don't forget your discount code for the Lava Box Portable Campfire. I know I'm going to go get one of mine. And remember, I'd love to hear from you. So if you have any questions or big takeaways about the episode that you want to share, send me an email to podcast@lifefromthesummit.com. If you have any guest recommendations for the podcast, send them my way. Love to get more badass Gen Xers on the podcast. And leave your comment on the website for this podcast episode, which is lifefromthesummit.com/podcast/3. Until next time, stay gold, Gen Xers.